Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve, and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and a little bit of design too. Now today's video is completely different from what you used to hear on the channel. It is not a step-by-step video, but I think it's something you're going to like still. It's a format that I'm going to be experimenting with, so this is kind of version 1 of the format. But essentially the idea is to show you a drawing process from start to finish. It's inspired by a post that I saw from Liza Glantz. I hope I'm saying it well. Editing Genevieve here. No, I was not. Liza Glantz, I think, is how you say it. If not, feel free to correct me in comments below. And essentially she filmed a sketching session from start to finish without editing the actual footage. And I thought that was such a great idea because, as she says, most tutorials you see on social media are rehearsed, or at least they're heavily edited, which is totally fine. But I think it's also really cool to see an artist's process from start to finish without removing any kind of mistakes. And especially more in this age of AI, where you take a few words as a prompt, you put those words in the AI thing and then it spits out images. I think it's really cool to be able to balance that with some human created art in which you can actually see the process. So this is the idea behind this video. You're going to see again my drawing process. And I also went on Instagram, created a post to learn more about what kind of time lapse you like to watch on YouTube. And the overwhelming response was that you also like to have some voiceover commentary. So that's exactly what I did. And that kind of opened the door to having a discussion about perfectionism in art, and that ended up being the overarching, idea behind the commentary on this video. But that was way more rambling than that was necessary, so let's just jump right into it. If you want to draw along with me, if you want to participate in the creativity challenge, I will make sure to link it in the video description. So yeah, grab your drawing tools or just sit back and let's get started. I don't know about you, but whenever I have an idea, I need to sketch it right away, otherwise I tend to forget it. So I kind of have pieces of paper all over the house, or my iPad is somewhere. So whenever I have an idea, I just grab it and do a quick rough sketch just like this. And I usually don't worry about making it nice in any way. I just keep it super messy and I jump straight into working on super basic shapes. Even these basic shapes for now, I'm not super worried about keeping them nice. As you can see, they're still wobbly and crooked. I just want to start mapping out everything as quickly as I can. I don't want to waste time because I'm still in an exploration phase at this stage. And if you've seen me draw in my tutorials or if you followed my course, you know how important I feel messy sketches are. Well, messy basic shapes are super important as well. I feel like messiness in general when you're drawing is so underrated. I think especially maybe illustrators that are getting started, or artists in general that are getting started, expect their illustrations to look good from the start. And there's this kind of perfectionist mindset that just take over, and that can be really paralyzing because no illustration looks good from just the first stroke. And so being able to turn off that perfectionist part of you, which I feel like most artists have that somewhere in some shape or form, being able to turn that off and be super messy and super quick at the start is going to allow you to, well, be quicker in your illustrations, so create more illustrations, but it's also going to allow you to explore more things because you're not going to be just trying to get it right from the start. You're going to have more room to try different things, which in the end is going to create illustrations that I think you're going to be more happy with. But it's also going to be a great way, again, if you're just getting started, to explore your style. So you're going to see what you're leaning towards or what you're intuitively drawing, and then you're going to build from that as opposed to trying to have something perfect from the start, which really rarely works, and at times it does work, it just looks super stiff. Yeah, as you can see, that's all I'm doing at this point, is just building some super rough basic shapes. I'm trying to see what's going to be in my illustration. So I had a general idea, again, soggy sheep, but like here, I don't know what I'm going to draw in terms of the toppings in the soup. So I'm trying some eggs, I'm going to try maybe some greens. I don't know exactly what type of greens, but something green I think would be nice because otherwise the colors are pretty beige and boring. So super quick. I mean, what is this? I don't know, but it's green. And I know that already that was something I was interested in. And so you can see it's really kind of this back and forth of experimentation to get to something more interesting at the end. And at this stage, usually even my layers are messy. They're in a weird order, they don't have names. But as I start liking the different elements, then I rename the layer if I know what the element is, like the little green beanie things. It took me forever to decide they were going to be green onions, so for the longest time that layer is not going to have a name. But it's really, again, try to be as quick as possible, and renaming layers at this stage really just takes a few seconds. But even then, that kind of breaks the flow of drawing, so I don't worry about that for now until, again, I'm happy with a specific element. And the reason I'm creating most of my elements on separate layers at this stage, which creates, as you can see, just this messy file, and you might be wondering, like, why do you do that to yourself? Well, it's so that I can easily play with my colors. I'm going to set the video back to just real time for a second here so you can see an example a little bit better. But again, this whole idea of being able to explore goes within the color palette as well. So instead of having to build one before you start adding your colors, it's really one of the upsides of working with digital tool is you can edit your illustration as you go. Much more easily, at least, than if you're working with just coloring pencils. So might as well take that as our advantage and use that as a way to explore more and create illustrations that we're super happy with. That being said, once I'm happy with the basic shapes and the basic color palette, I'm still going to edit it a million times, as you're going to see in the video, but I start refining the shapes a little bit more. So refining the edges, still not perfect. As you're going to see, I'm going to add some outlines towards the end, so it doesn't need to be perfect. But just to have something a little bit cleaner and to get a better feel for where I'm heading in my illustration. So a few things that I do at this stage that you're going to notice in the next couple minutes or so is, yes, I clean my edges, I work the shape, sometimes I distort, change the proportions, move stuff around. Again, using the layers, it's easy to move things around. But I'm also going to start working on the volumes by adding some super simple shadows. Now here I was just trying to find a color palette. This is not the iPad I usually use. This is my filming iPad, and oh my gosh, I need to clean my palettes. Speaking of which, if you want free palettes for Procreate, I have a bunch, as you can see. You can find them in my freebie bundle. I will link that in the description below. But anyway, I kind of create one palette just to save my colors, especially my shadow colors or any other color that is going to be applied as a blending mode, so that's easy to go back to later. If it's just a color, a solid color like the sheep or the green bean thingies, I can color pick that, that's not a big deal. But if I was to color pick the color I'm using right now for the shadow, because it is a layer that is applied using the blending mode multiply, I would just pick the wrong color. So it is sometimes helpful to just build a scratch color palette. The free ones are not scratch color palettes, they're actually nice, usable ones. But just to save some colors like that you're applying as blending mode, at least in your illustration, it just saves a little bit of time. If you forget to do it, not a big deal. What you can do is just put that layer on which you have, for example, your shadows back in the blending mode normal, bring the opacity back to 100%, and then color pick it. You've seen me maybe done it if you were paying attention, and then add the color to your color palette. Or if you don't want to deal with color palettes, or if you're working with a different software, you can also just draw a little dot, like a circle, on a piece of your illustration that is not full of colors, just like a white background. You would draw your little dot there, and that way you can just color pick it there as well. It's not affected by the colors underneath. And sometimes, depending on the effect I want, I'm working on a layer that is applied as a multiply blending mode, and I draw my shadows on there. Sometimes I just, as you can see here for the chopsticks, work on one layer and I tweak the colors myself when I just really want to work on the volume, and then I can come back and add some extra shadows and extra lights later to make it match the rest of the illustration. But it's, again, just this kind of back and forth. And when you watch my tutorials, everything is super organized, or at least I hope that's what I'm trying to do. And the steps kind of flow into each other, and we do all the base colors at first, and then all the shadows and all the lights and then details. But I think it's more normal, or at least that's what I've seen a lot of artists do, to go back and forth between these steps and explore, because you're getting more information as you draw. More information in terms of, the placement of different things, but also just what you want to do and the effect you want to achieve. And adding some shadows somewhere sometimes make you think, maybe I should have done that other thing differently, or maybe I should add this and add that. So don't be afraid to always go back to a previous step and to test something from a later step if you want, just to see what it would look like. And honestly, sometimes I just get too excited and I need to move forward a little bit and then come back. Like, for example, all the toppings are way beyond in terms of, like, for example, if you compare with the broth or the sheep, they're just basic color blobs. I don't even know what they're going to be. But I was so excited. I needed to add a little bit of effect to my broth to make it look like broth. And so there you go. I did it. And then later I'm going to come back to the toppings and deal with those. That's totally okay. You're just drawing for yourself. Or at least I'm not. I'm doing this on YouTube. But you get the point. The journey should be enjoyable. It should not be stressful every step of the way. Like making them look good. We're going back to what I said in the intro or the start of the video. It's fine. Don't be perfectionist. I've seen so many people while teaching in my course. I mean, I've had a few thousand students so far go through the course. So I've seen quite a lot of people and talking to them in the community or the forum, however you want to call it, and giving them advice on the illustration. So many of them, what they would say is they were paralyzed. They wouldn't want to start because they were too stressed. They were just projecting themselves at the end and they had not even grabbed their drawing tools yet. If you can get rid of one thing, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's so important. I'm going to repeat it. If you can get rid of one thing or one attitude or one mindset as an artist, it's perfectionism. I know it sounds really counterintuitive because you want to create beautiful illustrations and you think these artists that you love and look up to, they all are perfectionists. I would probably argue that they're not, or maybe they are at the root or at the core. But they learn to set that aside and just be messy and explore and have fun. I really didn't need to be rambling that much about messiness in this video. I meant to have just this great. I'm patting myself on the back right here, huh? I really just meant to have this fun process video, but I think it's something that I've seen too much, and I guess I really needed to talk about it. So here's my outlet, but I guess it means it's also very important, and hopefully that might resonate with you. But with that said, you've seen me kind of experiment with a few lights and shadows, and at this stage I feel like for me to be able to move forward with this illustration, I need to be working on those toppings. I've kicked the can down the road for way too long. I need to figure it out, because that's one thing also I think you need to be aware of, I guess. It is totally okay to jump a few steps forward for some parts of illustration, again, to explore and just get a better feel for the style you want to give everything. But if you're avoiding, like literally avoiding an element, for a lot of people it's drawing hands or drawing the other eye, something like that. For me, it was the toppings. If you're avoiding something and you avoid it until pretty much the end, so you have everything else looking super nice, but then you have that glaring hole in the illustration, you're going to have a really hard time fitting or filling that hole, because on one side you have something that you're happy with, so kind of an almost finished section of illustration, and then on the other side you have this nothingness, and not just any kind of nothingness. What we tend to procrastinate with the most is usually what we struggle with the most, and so you're going to try to draw something that you struggle with, and you're going to draw it right next to something that you're happy with. And so the comparison is going to be very discouraging, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So before you get too carried away, my advice would be get back to those things that you struggle with or that you're not quite sure and work on them. It might be a bit uncomfortable. It's a good thing. If it's uncomfortable, it means you are getting out of your comfort zone, literally. But that also means you're growing, you're stretching yourself. And so go back to those uncomfortable parts. Maybe work on some parts of illustrations enough to be excited about the whole illustration, so you don't want to just drop it when it gets challenging. But go back to the challenges before everything gets too nice, is what I'm saying. But if I get back to the illustration here, I'm working on the noodles. I mean, I've been working on it for a little while. So I moved the little beanie things. They're going to come back, spoiler alert. But it's also a great opportunity for me to talk to you about approaching elements that are messy within an illustration and should be messy. So like grass, gravel, sand, dirt, bushes, tree leaves, noodles, spaghetti, all things that have this kind of texture, but that is a little bit random and tangled. The way I like to draw them is I start with 3 slightly different versions of my base color, and then I draw kind of a scribble of what the basic shapes within the texture should be. and I change the color back and forth, and so it kind of stacks those 3 different versions of the color. And then I come back with either shadow or a highlight or both, and I try to find some sort of pattern within those messy shapes and lines that I drew. So instead of starting from the start trying to have a rational outlook on these elements, I just go draw whatever, and then I try to find the elements within messy shapes. To me, it is way less overwhelming, and that's just something that has completely transformed drawing trees and other things like that for me. So that might be a tip that you can try if that's something you struggle with as well. Now, one thing that I really like to do as well is add some extra shadows. So I usually have my base shadows that I apply to specific elements to help show the form and the 3-dimensionality of them. So I have like my shadow in the bowl. But also I like to have more intense shadows that would be cast shadows, I guess. So like here I'm imagining the chopstick are casting a shadow on the broth and the noodles. And I usually make those shadows quite punchy and intense. I feel like it's a really nice way to amp up an illustration that otherwise might be a little bit flat or just feels a little bit lifeless. So that's one thing that I experiment with. I personally don't worry too much about how accurate my lights and shadows are within my illustrations. I mean, within reason. I don't want to make it look like my light source is on the right in one piece of the illustration and then on the left in the second piece. I want to have some sort of coherence, but I'm not too bothered with the extreme accuracy of the physics of lights, because my illustrations are cartoonish anyway. They're not realistic. There's some things that just don't make sense. And so I find sometimes trying to retrofit perfectly accurate shading and lighting in illustrations that are not perfectly accurate depictions of real life things, it just doesn't work. And so I try to go with more instinct rather than calculated rational, again, for shading and lighting. So you've seen, if you've watched any of my tutorials, I have this technique for lights and highlights that I call outlining my outline. And so I add highlights really just on the very edges of elements. That is not realistic, but that's part of my style. And that's good enough for me. So that's another thing that you can explore or use to explore and enhance your own personal visual style and signature. Shading and lighting, and how do you treat those? Do you always have shadows? Do you just sometimes have them? Do you have shadows but not lights? Do your shadow interact with outlines? Do you have outlines at all? Those are all little elements that you can play with. And so I know when you watch step-by-step tutorials, at least mine, I give you a recipe that you can follow, and that's great. But don't be afraid when you're working on your own pieces, or even if you're following a tutorial, to see what kind of ingredients in the recipe you can change, how you can change them, can you add some elements, remove some ingredients. Again, this is the beauty of digital art, is you can just hide layers if you want, move them, change the color. And as you guessed it, just to loop back to the start of the video, explore and just be messy with your process. And just then I said messy your process, or messy with your process, and my perfectionist little inside voice wanted to correct that and say, no, not messy. I kind of got uncomfortable. And I want to just say, no, be messy with your process. I guess maybe messy has a negative connotation, because if you're talking about your house being messy, or a space being messy, that's not a great thing. And so if like me, you're just really jumping at the word messy sometimes when I say it, maybe change it to be carefree, be loose, be intuitive with your drawing. So be intuitive with your process rather than being rational and strict. So maybe you could see the word messy for those positive attributes rather than for the negative connotations that we often associate with it. Now, I feel like I've talked so much and I'm just kind of rambling, so I'm going to take a little break here. You can see I'm just working on trying to figure out the toppings again. But usually once I have my main shapes, my main lights, my main shadows, what I like to do at the end is crisp up the illustration. I said I was going to stop talking. I guess I'm not. But yeah, crisp up the illustration. Really make sure we can see everything. Every element is well defined from each other. And I do that by adding some outlines here and there. I don't add them everywhere. Sometimes I do. In most of my videos I do, because I find that's an easy way to approach outlines at first. But at this stage, I mostly add them, again, when I want to define some elements to make them pop a little bit more, or if an element is really the element of focus, so like the focal point of the illustration, the most important thing, I make sure I add a lot of outlines on that one, a lot of details, thin, small elements to really draw the eye there. But for big elements that are not super important, I try to mostly crisp them up by adding shadows. So like the bowl has a big shadow. I'm not going to worry too much about adding outlines to that. But these little toppings took me so long to figure out what I wanted to do. Now I'm kind of happy with them, so I'm crisping them up, really assuming that they are green onions and noodles and bok choy, and yeah. Now at this stage, my screen was getting really super hot, and I'm going to get a notification really soon. You're going to see telling me that I only had 10% battery left, so I'm going to plug in my iPad, but we're pretty much nearing the end. You're going to see me add a few details, and I think that's probably my most favorite part of the video, is just watching everything come to life. So I highly suggest you might check out this last part, and especially when I start doing the lettering, it's kind of hilarious because I'm not great at lettering, but you know what? I don't care. I'm still going to do it, and I'm not going to expect it to be perfect. That's part of the process. So if you want to see me struggle, I often get people on Instagram that tell me like, hey, you know, how do I get to draw like you? Well, it's a lot of practice, and I think sometimes it's easy when you see an artist that has been drawing for a long time. Not that I'm perfect. I'm really not one of the best artists, like not even close on just Instagram or something like that. But I do have quite a few years of practice under my belt. The lettering is definitely going to be a humbling part of this video, and I hope you enjoy watching me struggle, because I'm human, and I think that's really good for everyone to see that the people you watch, or the artist that you look up to, if you do look up to me, thank you, but see the struggle that we face as well in illustrations. So enjoy me struggling with the lettering. It's quite hilarious. The idea behind this whole creative challenge, I must admit, I kind of rigged it a little bit because we have a few lambs now on a homestead, and I wanted to make a sign to put on their shelter. And our lambs, their name are all kind of soup related. So we have noodle, we have tofu, and we're gonna have miso. Well, probably by the time the video come out, we're gonna have miso as well. But yeah, my husband thought, oh, the shelter that could be themed around a soup bar, and that just soggy sheep popped in my head. And then I had this idea of making the sign, which then evolved into this idea of doing the whole creativity challenge things and filming this video, and here we are today. So yeah, again, if you have any kind of comments or constructive kind criticism, I would love to hear it, or read it at least in the comments below. Whenever you have feedback, that is nice. I know I keep saying it, but people have been nasty recently on YouTube. So yeah, anything nice that you have to say that can help me improve the quality of the content is so valuable, because that's all I want to do, is create things that are better every time so that you can get just better quality content here on my platforms. So yeah, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to see what you create if you participate in the creativity challenge. Make sure to share it with me either on Instagram or Facebook or whatever other platform you might have. But otherwise, that's it. I will see you soon with more videos, whether step-by-step tutorial or creativity challenge just like this one.